Hello, 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 how are you? And welcome back to this most recent episode of the Ups and Downs for Lower Decks. A lot has happened since I saw you last. I do want to take a second at the start of this episode to just offer our deepest sympathies and condolences to the family of Jerry Taylor, who passed away this past weekend. Jerry Taylor's impact on Star Trek has been nothing short of phenomenal. She was one of the co-creators of Star Trek Voyager, as well as penning some of the franchise's greatest episodes. We're going to go into a little bit more detail about Jerry Taylor in some lists we've got coming up and a couple of videos as well, but I just wanted to take a second to do a shout out to, honestly, one of the most important people in modern Star Trek, what it looks like and what it's become. So to Jerry Taylor, we say, sleep well, thank you for everything, and you have been incredible. This episode of Star Trek Lower Decks had me just giggling throughout, from the title of the episode right through to the end. It's silliness, and it just works. It just works, so it does. One thing it does not do is pile on the horror, and I don't know if I'm disappointed at that, because happy Halloween, everyone. Halloween is my favourite holiday, so, you know, could have been more Halloween-y, but we won't give it a down for that. What we will do is go through it now and start listing all of the ups and downs. The Best Exotic Nanite Hotel. First of all, I love that because I love The Best Exotic Marigold Hotel that the title is based on. And also, if you haven't seen it, do give it a go. It is lots of fun and just some great performances. And also the late great Maggie Smith is in it as well. But this episode sees the Cerritos arriving at the Cosmic Duchess, which is a floating cruise liner and quite frankly looks brilliant and is my first up of the week. It is just a hoot. It reminds me very much of like Cloud9 from the reimagined Battlestar Galactica, but also I know there's different space cruise liners out there in history. They have been tasked with tracking down and humanely recapturing some nanites. Taken up for some nanites there. We haven't seen nanites in so long. Love a bit of nanites, I do. There's actually quite a bit that we're going to go through in the cetacean observations for this week. So, yep, going to go into the story of the nanites and also so much other stuff going on in this episode. Tendi is back and part of the gang again, taken up because she just brings so much upbeat joy and she just makes you feel all warm, doesn't she? And even T'Lyn is delighted to see her back and says, despite the increase in cheering, it is a comfort to have you back again. And I love that. I mean, that's as close to, you know, throwing her arms around her and declaring her undying love for Tendi as it's possible to get. And also, hold up. What's going on? We gotta stop for and up. But it's mustache watch. Okay, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But Boimler is up to 16 hairs. I say we have 16 hairs on that face. Boimler, well played, well played. It's looking good what you've got so far. Honestly, if this becomes a running gag of the season, I'm going to love this so much. Because so many things are just one and done when it comes to Star Trek. But I do love as well, you know, don't worry, Boimler's beard is not an affectation. Just saying. We also see the return of Jennifer! It's our favourite Andorian ensign. I've missed Jennifer, and I also felt that she did just kind of disappear for a while, but she is back and she plays a big role in this episode. So the ups are coming thick and fast here. Some nice stuff going on between Jennifer and Mariner this week. But also I do have to address my first down of the week. And my first down of the week is about Ransom's seemingly callous lack of care for officers and ensigns maimed and injured under his watch. Poor old Ensign Manhaver is now no longer Ensign Handhaver. Like what the heck? Ransom, at least pretend to care. Although he is pretty distracted coming up with cool nicknames for himself and for Billups, who is now Zandy Billups. Or is he? Just before they beam over to the Cosmic Duchess, Jennifer throws her arms around Mariner and is so happy to be working with her girlfriend again. As Mariner's eyes go, excuse me, what? I need to address something. I've gotten rather a few comments these past couple of weeks because of something that was perhaps not included in our videos, and that is, of course, the whopper of an up that must go to the Star Trek Lower Decks logo featuring the trailing edge that was, of course, introduced in the Next Generation's 5th season as well. Oh my, I have only my apologies to give. Wood for the trees, folks. Oh, I love it so much. It's a definite up from me. It is such a loving nod to Star Trek's history. And I mean, just it's reasons like this that Lower Decks works so well. For those of you who skip the opening credits as well, definitely watch the opening credits for Lower Decks. It's just guys, I'm still finding things now that I haven't seen before. In fact, spoiler for Cetacean Observations, there's a Breen ship in that melee as well, and I keep not seeing it because I'm there looking at the Green Hand and V'ger and the Cetacean probe because it flies by right in the beginning, and it's following the Klingon bird of prey, and it's like, what else are you going to cram into this scene by season's end? I want to give a particular up to Billup's assumed name, which is of course Gilbert Manhandle, who has a gambling addiction. It's so needlessly complicated. Like, you've got Zach Ransom, and Zach Ransom would like Zandy Billups to be his friend, whereas Andy Billups is like, no, Gilbert Manhandle. I'm just like, sure, why not? Why not be complicated? This sets up the scene. So you've got Ransom, Billups, and Boimler are heading down to chase an admiral who's gone off the grid. So they're like, okay, well, we can't let that happen. We gotta go and follow up on that, while everyone else is just, trying to capture these nanites, or as I will refer to them for the rest of the episode, Glumpus. You just know that Rutherford is the right person to be chasing Glumpus after this, but that he needs, he needs the team together as well. Jennifer does in fact have some pretty good ideas in terms of catching Glumpus Mark 1, which is just a little Glumpus. And this is when, when she's setting up her trap, she reveals to Mariner that she's actually going to be transferred off the Cerritos. She's heading over to the Manitoba. And Mariner breathes a sigh of relief because Jennifer still seems to think that she's Mariner's girlfriend. And T'Lyn, Tendi, and Rutherford are going, well, Mariner, didn't you guys break up? And Mariner's like, yeah, we broke up through silence. And they kind of look at her, and she's like, no, it was implied. It was implied that we broke up. Wasn't it? And then we get T'Lyn with just this pearl of wisdom. Assumptions are anathema to communication. Taken up, because I've always liked the word anathema. So I really liked it when Mariner went, you're anathema. She then goes to speak to Jennifer, right? Now, okay, she does take it out really quickly, but again, here is Mariner's growth. Yes, Mariner before, silence, I'll walk away, that will be fine, that will fix everything, yeah, Jennifer will get the message. Now she knows that can't be the case. So even though, yes, she does take Jennifer saying she's transferring to the Manitoba as a bit of a get out of jail free card, she knows that something has to be done, and we do follow them for the rest of the episode, and it's genuinely funny. Because you do see Mariner trying not to have the conversation, but this Mariner who has been through so much and has grown as a character, knows she's trying not to have a conversation that has to be had. Whereas Mariner of yesteryear would have been like, we don't need to have that conversation. That's not a thing. We're not going to do that. And I love the growth. I'm just loving the growth. I think Mariner's growth should be a thing on this. Taking up Mariner's growth. That sounds really weird when I say it like that, doesn't it? Things look pretty sweet for Boimler, really, in the beginning. Now, while he's still a bit nervous because of what Chet told him about how Ransom sort of leaves ensigns to get nobbled, they're sitting there in the Ryza bar, obviously lots of fun, and Ransom is trying to say, right, okay, Boimler, we're going to need you to talk to some people to find out where Admiral Milius has gone. Go have a chat to those Gallimites. Immediately taken up because it's the first time we've seen a Gallimite on screen with their transparent skulls. Straight away, what am I thinking of? Captain Baudet had lunch with Jadzia, all very nice and fun, and now I see they're pretty sexy. Yeah, I'd have lunch with them. I'm totally on board with a couple of Gallimites. Yeah. Oh, that was cool. That was cool. But no, Boimler's like, they look pretty dangerous. I'm going to go and talk to these folks over here. And they turn out to be Cretaceans. And he just makes one mistake after another. And Boimler, come on, he does know that you're not supposed to eat in front of Cretaceans. And like Ransom's like, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? But it's okay. He gets a chance to redeem himself because what they're going to do is they're going to go over to the frickin' Paramount Mountain. Oh, come on. Did you not think we wouldn't notice? I liked that. Because there's an acolyte of Admiral Milius who is on this mountain, and if they can contact her, they might be able to find the missing admiral. Back down with the rest of the gang, it looks like Jennifer's trap is going to work. She's sitting there. There is a crystal that's a little bit attractive to Glumpus, but maybe not quite as attractive enough. Beside them, however, is a poster for Krog on the vibe tubes. Now, Mariner's a bit like, oh, it's just a beach crooner. And to Lynn, of all people, goes, Krog is my favourite musician. And again, watching Mariner's face being like, oh, okay, sorry about that. Love this because also just love what Krog looks like. Cetacean observations, stick around, just saying. We do then lead to Glumpus doesn't fall for Jennifer's trap, and they're like, oh man. Rather than let time go by to see if they have a way of luring Glumpus again, Mariner comes up, well, why don't we fire a phaser at the crystal, which will supercharge it, which will be much more attractive to Glumpus. Rutherford is so not on board. He's like, no, that's not a good idea. That could be dangerous. And Mariner's like, no, it's fine. Fires at the crystal. It does work, Glumpus does come back, but absorbs so much energy, it bursts through the trap and escapes out of the building. And Jennifer's a bit like, are you trying to, what's this about? Are you trying to get rid of me? And Mariner's like, no, not at all. I just want to be able to enjoy our last day together or something. Over on Paramount Mountain, we have Billups, Boimler, and Ransom get to the top of the peak. They've crawled up, they're sitting there in their sexiest 80s finest ski gear. They spot the Acolyte, who, yep, cool stuff going on there. And Ransom goes, oh my god, is that her? What do you think, Zandy? What do you think, Zandy? What do you think, Gilbert? Yeah, that's her over there. Taken up. This then leads to one of my favourite scenes, not just in the episode, but in Lower Decks overall. Poor Boimler ends up skiing down a slope he is not trained for. He goes right off the end of it after some furry stuff that's definitely over 18s, and we get one of the most prolonged, hilarious Boimler screams of them all. It's just outstanding. It's an up from me. And when he lands in the snowbank at the bottom, he celebrates the fact that he spends so much time in space because there's really no density to his bones. Lower Decks, like, what are you doing? Although this Acolyte does trick that, oh, well, no, hang on, he's Starfleet, we've got to get away from them. This does allow them to trace the Admiral's, like the call to the Admiral, leading them to a lazy river. And it's just like, they're having this really serious talk about, what's needed of an officer and what they need to do for the mission as they sit in inflatable rings just going down a lazy river. Like, I just have to wonder, imagine a really serious scene. Imagine how many lights do you see, but they're both sitting in inflatable tubes going down a lazy river. And I want you to think about that going forward. Tell me, how many tubes do you see? The rest trace Glumpus to the concert hall, which is, of course, where Krog is going to perform later on that evening. And Jennifer seems to be starting to figure out that something's not right with Mariner. And this leads to Jennifer getting a bit, understandably, annoyed. And the rest are still pressing Mariner, just be straight with her, just tell her the truth. And, Mariner's like, oh, I don't know what to do. And Rutherford comes up with a really good point about how relationships in Starfleet are difficult. They're often on different ships, they're often on different shifts, and sometimes they're getting turned into other things. And it's a really interesting point because we know this, but at the same time, discussing the difficulties of relationships, it doesn't seem to be a focus an awful lot. It doesn't. Actually, Strange New Worlds is doing a good job of that, even though T'Pring isn't in Starfleet. DS9 did it a little bit, and we have other examples like that. I'd like to give an up to that, just to bring that to the fore, because it is hard to maintain a relationship when you're both serving in Starfleet. They do point out that Mariner's parents, they figure it out, even though Freeman captains the Cerritos, while Admiral Freeman is based back on Earth. This contemplative section is sort of cut short when the Glumpus starts to absorb an awful lot of the energy from the Opera House's mainframe. This is while Jennifer and Mariner are they're starting to bicker an awful lot. They're like, it's like a lot of really pointed, well, babe, well, hon. Now, the Glumpus then grows really, really quickly into a icosahedron! Taken up for a D20. I see you, D&D fans. I see you. It then starts to chase T'Lyn, Tendi, and Rutherford, who are then absorbed into the Glumpus. And, it's like this leaving Mariner and Jennifer have to work together to try and shut this thing down. It starts rolling all through this resort. It absorbs Krog as well. Oh no! Oh no. And it grows and it grows and eventually it damages some things, and they drive their hover golf cart off the edge of a sort of a platform, sending them both careening to and grabbing onto a tall palm tree. And there's just a really funny sight gag in this scene as well, when they finally have the talk. Because they're stuck up a tree as they, and in the middle of their speech, one might slip a few inches and then pull themselves back up again, as behind them, the Glumpus is just rolling around. And it's such a well-designed scene. It's so silly, and it really, really works. And we get this heart-to-heart, and it's really sweet. And Jennifer admits that, yes, she was well aware of the fact that they had broken up, the two of them, and she was messing with Mariner. And then she then reflects on, well, I suppose, what does it say about me that I chose to mess with you rather than just pull you up on the fact that we haven't spoken about it. And it's a good heart-to-heart. Mariner accepts and apologizes the fact that no, she didn't break up with her. They have been broken up, but it wasn't done officially. And so then officially says, I am breaking up with you, to which Jennifer responds, I officially accept. It is so mature, it is so grown up, it's still within the silly bounds of Lower Decks, and it's a whopper of an up from me. Over at AWOL Falls, taken up, Ransom, Billups, and Boimler are brought to the compound, if you like, where Admiral Milius has taken up residence. Boimler is brought before the Admiral. And I mean, the whole scene is Apocalypse Now. Let's just call a spade a spade. That's what it is. It's Apocalypse Now. Milius is Marlon Brando. If you haven't seen the film, watch the film. It's long, but it's good. There is a crucially important Easter egg throughout this whole scene, so do stick around Cetacean Observations, because I want to go into a little bit of detail about that. But this, of course, very, very quickly played for laughs, because you have this Admiral who is, a Latinum elite member on this cruise ship, and so he's been watching Boimler all day. He's there sporting this sunburn with just the glasses mark around his eyes, and yes, yeah, I know, you're all thinking of the picture of me from Vasquez Rocks. Wear your sun cream, folks! Wear your sun cream. And this is on a cruise liner that apparently the sun is set that you can't get burned, and he still managed to get burned. And he's fed up because, instead of getting all the cool missions or whatever, he milks space whales. We don't ever really find out if it's Gormaganders or those Galaxy Child's whales, it's just the whales. Taken up. I'll be honest, I can understand his frustration just a little bit, but he's trying to encourage other officers as well to, go AWOL with him. Starfleet doesn't care about you. And it kind of looks like he's getting a bit of traction with some of these people until he makes the vital mistake of having convinced Boimler, or seemingly convinced Boimler, to join his cause. And Boimler then turns around and greases himself up with all of the sun cream. Reminds me of a greased up deaf guy from Family Guy and from some other stuff happening in the news recently. And he manages to escape the grip, literally, of all of these acolytes. And Milius makes his fatal flaw and says, "No, throw your lives away in the pursuit of freedom." And everyone just goes, yeah, that's not really kind of the vibe here. And they all just leave. One guy says, actually, I better go. My wife thinks I'm at the buffet. Taken up. And finally, Ransom and Billups realise why Boimler's been on edge all day. Because Boimler's been convinced that they're just using him for the grunt work. Because, it's kind of, we'll just send a lower decker in because they don't need hands. And Ransom goes, no, that's not what we meant to do. But he apologizes, okay, I do see how this came across. But really what they need is a wiry guy. They need someone who, doesn't really panic in the face of danger. And they thought, that's Boimler. So actually, from their point of view, they were showing faith in him. And it's actually a really sweet moment. And it's very much in that machismo that Ransom exudes all of the time, but still in a very respectful way. So Boimler really has a journey there. Back in the other section, Mariner and Jennifer come together because Jennifer has figured out how to defeat Glumpus. She needs to break apart those electronic bonds that are holding all of the nanites together, and she figures out a good way of doing that. She allows herself and Mariner to get caught, but not without Krog's vibe tubes. They jump in, and she presents them to T'Lyn and says, T'Lyn, it's up to you. and Tallinn delivers some of the finest vibe tubing I think I've ever seen. It is absolutely an up from me, and it works. It breaks apart the bond holding all of Glumpus together, which allows the nanites to go inert. Wahey. Once all of the nanites are inert and they are splattered all over the ground, we realise that actually it wasn't the nanites themselves that were clumping together to become the Glumpus of our dreams. There was in fact something else guiding them all. And we get the revelation that there was a ship at the centre of it. And it is indeed a Starfleet ship, one that came through one of those parallel universe fissures. It is the USS Endeavour, a microscopic version of an Intrepid class ship from our Prime universe, if you will. And they say how awful it's been. It's been a month of hell. A month? Up. Latinum up. Oh my god, the fact that no, don't even talk to me until it becomes a year. That's when we can talk about when it's gonna be hell or not. Poor Captain Tercel. She's gone through so much, but no, come on. In this universe, we do years, we don't do months. It is absolutely hilarious. Now, they do manage to help her in such a way that Admiral Milius, instead of being thrown in the brig for, pretty serious violations of Starfleet law, in fact is assigned the mission to get the Endeavour home and to try and recreate these parallel fissures. Do you remember when I said I wonder if this is going to become some sort of ongoing plot thread throughout the rest of the season? Funny that, innit? Anyway, I'm very excited to see where this goes. I want to see if we see a version of Admiral Milius without the sunburn again. And most importantly, I am just delighted to have everyone back on board the Cerritos. Tallinn getting her autograph of Krog. Someone has defaced this picture. Oh, okay. I'll take it away then. I will keep it in my quarters in case I need to examine handwriting. Taken up. And you get Ransom as well, slapping Boimler on the back, and then he spots Chet Manhaver, and it's like, oh, we're gonna go on a new mission, there's gonna be magma and crystalline spiders, and he runs away and take it down. Ransom needs to be stopped. He needs to be stopped. Folks, will you kindly join me at Citation Observations? The cruise liner, the Cosmic Duchess, reminds me a little bit of Starbase 1 from Star Trek Discovery and of course Star Trek Strange New Worlds as well, especially those habitat pods around the edge of them. Nanites, of course, were introduced back in the Next Generation Season 3 opener, Evolution, where Dr. Paul Stubbs tries to kill them all and they try and fight back. They were then mentioned, of course, time and time again throughout Star Trek. They were considered as an option against the Borg in the Best of Both Worlds. The Doctor has used them. Bashir comments on how nanites were similar to those microscopic computers with the Ennis and the Null Ennis in Battle Lines. Had to think about the name of that one there for a second. They are a sort of recurring plot theme. But I think this is probably some of the biggest screen time that nanites have ever gotten. Also then the reference to humanely capturing them, because as you remember, nanites are sentient beings. So, you can't kill them because that is mass murder. Boimler is very excited for the fact that there's Dixon Hill slot machines over on the Cosmic Duchess. I also don't know what an underwater dry park is, but I want to go. Ransom invites Boimler on a side quest or a side mission. There's a lot of themes of D&D going on in this episode. Again, Glumpus effectively becomes a giant D20. So, I see you. We have, of course, the Season 5 version of the font, which is going on in the opening credits. The Breen ship that's chasing the Bird of Prey. Now, that's also significant because the Breen are probably a bit annoyed at the Klingons at this point, because the Klingons were the only ships that had the technology to withstand the Breen's energy dampening weapons in the latter days of the Dominion War. It was one Bird of Prey in particular that was able to survive the Second Battle of Chintoka. Jennifer says that she's going on a transfer to the Manitoba. Now, there's sort of, I'm not going to lie, this is a reach, but there's sort of a funny thing in mentioning the Manitoba as the name of the ship, because as we would later go on to find out, both Mariner and Jennifer are not so much messing with, Jennifer's messing with Mariner. Mariner is somewhat unable to really be honest with Jennifer. The Manitoba was previously mentioned in Star Trek back in the Next Generation episode, The Price. And not so much the Manitoba, but the Manitoba Journal of Interplanetary Psychology, because they contacted Deanna Troi for research reference. And I just thought that was interesting, because when you've got Mariner and Jennifer effectively playing with each other's minds, just that would be a bit of a connection there. The Ryza Bar got a giggle out of me. The Solarian Colladas as well. Solarian 4 was the planet on which the Cardassians staged an attack by the Bajora in the episode Ensign Rowe of The Next Generation. We see Galamites for the first time, of course, making me think of Captain Bo Day. The Cretassans. So they consider eating to be more intimate than mating. Well, we know this because we saw this happen in the episode Vox Sola, where the crew of Enterprise managed to offend them every 5 minutes by doing something else completely awful. I'm not going to lie, they were a deeply, deeply annoying race in Enterprise. Paramount Mountain is the one that Boimler skis down. Krog. Okay, this one had me giggling because now I have no way of confirming this, but Krog to me seems very reminiscent of those rock monsters that Shatner wanted to put in Star Trek V: The Final Frontier, but they ran out of money. You know, animation doesn't have such restrictions, so I choose to believe that Krog is one of those rock monsters and he plays the vibe choose. Good for him. One of Admiral Milius's acolytes is a Denobulan. That's who we see skiing down the mountain. As Boimler is coming down the side of that mountain, So he grabs onto a passing furry alien. The alien turns around and says, "Why are you grabbing my genitals?" Boimler goes, "Why are they on your back?" To which the alien goes, "Where else would they be?" Like, this is so clearly the big blue alien that Kirk is fighting in Rora Penthe in Star Trek VI. You know, when he kicks him in his knee. You know, and Kirk says, "I was just lucky that thing had knees." To which Marta, the Cameloid, goes, "That was not his knee. Not everyone keeps their genitals in the same place, Captain." When Billups, Ransom, and Boimler are being captured, keep an eye out for the people coming toward them out of the lazy river, one of whom is a Gorn, another one is a Galardorian, icosahedron D20. Love it. A wall falls, and I said I wanted to go into a little bit of a detail about this. So, Admiral Milius sitting there, and this is so obviously an homage to Apocalypse Now. Well, there's more to it than that. Star Trek Insurrection, in its earliest days, began as a variation on Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness, which is what Apocalypse Now is based on as well. Michael Piller worked with Rick Berman on, developing the script as it went, and eventually, of course, it would become something else along the way. But initially, it was a bit of a darker premise. He wrote a book called Fade In, The Making of Star Trek Insurrection, that was actually unpublished for several years, despite the fact it had got sign-off by Paramount and by Simon & Schuster. But they then read the manuscript, which was effectively a day-to-day diary of how the film was created, the changes it went through, and the processes that it went through as well. And then, according to Piller, he was told, "No, we don't want the truth of what goes on when making films to come out." So actually it was after Michael Piller passed away, his widow, Sandra Piller, eventually got this published and put it out into the world in 2016. So do give that a check out if you can. Admiral Milius again then, of course, being Colonel Kurtz, which was played by Marlon Brando in Apocalypse Now. When Boimler is finding out that Milius is being given boring missions, he goes, "What is it, Borg stuff?" And he goes, "No, I'm milking whales." "Oh, what kind of whales? Gormaganders or those Galaxy's Child things?" They are all having this conversation in the Temple of Dread, which to me just screams Temple of Doom from Indiana Jones. We get several references to Starbase 80. Boo, Starbase 80. Krog, as it turns out, is a student of logic. Himself and T'Lyn share a lovely live long and prosper as well. Quite enjoyed that. The USS Endeavour is a microscopic Intrepid class ship. We see Captain Tercel donning a TNG era red uniform, the lovely 4 pips, and of course the TNG era comm badge as well. So even though the ship, of course, being very reminiscent of, obviously, USS Voyager, where everyone was wearing the DS9 jumpsuits, it's just nice to see those uniforms make a reply. Now, the USS Endeavour, there's been a couple of Endeavours before in Star Trek. There was the USS Endeavour that was assigned as part of Operation Retrieve, the operation that never actually went into operation, that Colonel West, played by René Auberjonois, was going to do to rescue Kirk and McCoy from Rora Penthe. Although, the way that film went out, I think I guess why that was scrapped, because it wouldn't have made an awful lot of sense for Colonel West to be leading the Operation Retrieve. Anyway, the Endeavour was a Constitution-class ship that was assigned to part of that fleet. The other USS Endeavour was part of Picard's fleet that built the tachyon net that existed between the Klingon and Romulan borders in the episode Redemption Part 2. It was then later on, so the captain of the Endeavour, the Captain Amosov, I wonder who he's based on, had this to say about the Borg in Scorpion. It is my opinion that the Borg are as close to pure evil as any race we've encountered. Captain Tercel bemoans the fact that it's been a month of hell. Well, have a chat with Janeway. She went through a year of hell. The Billups tubes are clearly visible in that lab as well. Tercel was worried that she was doomed to spend out the rest of her days living life the size of an amoeba. Well, if you go back to the original series episode, The Immunity Syndrome, you'll know that amoeba can actually get pretty big. So I wouldn't worry about that if I were you. Nice to see the officer in the engineering gold returning, wearing a hijab, sitting in, not 10, I did call this 10 forward. I'm going to call it the mess hall from now on, because I had said 10 forward before, and so mess hall. They're sitting in the mess hall. There's also an officer with a visor sitting there as well. Boimler is drinking deeply from a Klingon cup, and that's where we are. Folks, thank you so much for watching along. You are awesome, you're wonderful. What did you think of the episode? Let us know in the comments below, and if you're watching along in the live chat, hello! And I hope you're enjoying everything. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. It really makes such a difference when you do. Thank you so much, everyone who does that. You are awesome. We will be back with you next week for the next episode of Lower Decks Ups and Downs. Until then, you look after yourself. You have a wonderful first few days of November, and a very happy Halloween to you again. Live long and prosper. Thank you very much.